For those serving in 669, the Israeli Search and Rescue Unit, a day can be unpredictable. One moment they can be rescuing a hiker in the Negev, then 20 minutes later they can be on their way to Lebanon to save a downed pilot behind enemy lines. Sitting in a helicopter, a 669 operator often has no idea what their mission will be. 669, the IDF's Airborne Combat Rescue and Evacuation Unit, is dispatched when things go horribly wrong. They have to be ready for anything: mountain rescues, diving missions, even armed combat. 669 is one of the IDF's elite Special Forces units. What does it take to become a 669 operator? And more importantly, how does a unit member deal with the constant stress and uncertainty that comes with the job? 669's primary purpose is rescuing pilots from behind enemy lines, but they are often called upon to use their expertise to rescue wounded soldiers and even civilians in need of emergency helicopter evacuation. The unit's motto is, "In distress you called, and I rescued you. In a time of need, 669 is on their way." But the IDF didn't always have such a unit. During the near cataclysmic Yom Kippur War in 1973, over 100 Israeli aircraft were shot down in enemy territory, and dozens of pilots were taken captive. The IDF had no rescue plan. The commander of the Israeli Air Force, Benny Peled, had previously petitioned for a specialized rescue unit, but now he demanded one, with a focus on rescuing pilots. His petition was accepted, and in 1974, the IDF established Unit 669. Becoming an airborne evacuation and rescue operator isn't easy. There's a grueling testing process that starts with the Yom Sayarot, the elite forces tryout day, months before they're drafted. Over 10,000 young Israelis are evaluated for placement in the IDF's most elite units. Evaluators identify physical traits like endurance and discipline. They also watch for mental traits to know if they can work as a team player, come up with creative solutions to problems, and can stay calm under pressure. Only some 50 candidates proceed to 669's basic training, and of those, only around 60% complete the intense 18 months of training involving everything from rope rescue to parachuting and diving. They become experts in survival, rescue at sea, under fire, and at night, as well as urban warfare. Getting the injured out of chaos is one thing. Keeping them alive long enough to get to the hospital is another. So they also go through full medic training. The training regimen ensures not only mastery of skill, but also a supreme level of resourcefulness in unpredictable situations. 669 training takes a year longer than most other combat units and costs the IDF upwards of 1 million shekel, or just over $300,000 per soldier. But no amount of training can fully protect unit members for the challenges they will face. For example, in 2018, undercover IDF soldiers infiltrating a Hamas cell deep within the Gaza Strip found themselves in desperate need for immediate extraction. Stranded with their cover blown, one dead, and other soldiers wounded from the gunfight, 669 mounted a treacherous night helicopter rescue, touching down in hostile territory. Within 3 minutes, most of the soldiers were secured in the helicopter. But with one man behind, those in the field had a dilemma: disengage for the best chance of reaching safety, or leave no man behind and risk bullet fire and anti-aircraft rockets. They took the gamble and extracted everyone successfully.
Through the 18 months of training, we live in uncertainty in everything. When we're going to eat, where we're going to sleep, or when, what we're going to do, what is the next mission. And I believe that through those training, we learn the best how to prepare ourselves to be surprised and get on a call for any scenario that may happen on the field in real time. And of course, not leaving anyone behind.
Because 669 is often the first line of medical treatment, a standard team consists of a doctor, a paramedic, and a handful of combat operators who all have full medic training themselves. While some of the paramedics in 669 are operators who received additional certification, some of them come from other combat units. The doctors, all in the reserves, are ex-combat soldiers who continue to med school after their army service. Even though the paramedics and doctors aren't expected to participate in combat, they are still required to undergo an intense training regimen to make sure they can keep up if need be. The many months of training and medical expertise help ensure success. But for 669, sometimes the missions are even more taxing emotionally than physically. In 2018, tragedy struck when 25 Israeli teens were trapped in a sudden flash flooding on a school trip. 669 scouted the length of the desert, searching for the smallest sign of their whereabouts, a jacket, or even a single shoe. Unit members cabled down into the rushing muddy waters. Ultimately, the unit rescued 13 students with no injuries, while 2 more were saved in the nick of time and sent off to a nearby hospital in Beersheba. But unfortunately, even with all of 669's skill and effort, 10 teenagers didn't return home. Since Israel is such a small country, there are times when the victims are friends or even family.
When we arrived to the hospital after evacuated them, suddenly my team member saw that one of the wounded soldiers is one of his classmates, the first thing you want to do is to be with him in this moment and to hold his hand and say, I'm here, I'm with you, everything will be okay. And you want to show him a familiar face, but we don't have the privilege or the time to think about it and to take the time to do it. And we need to evacuate, to treat, and to bring to the hospital as fast as we can and get prepared to the next mission without letting it to sink into our minds.
In 2010, 669 was part of the 220-person IDF mission to Haiti. They helped set up one of the most advanced field hospitals, which treated over 1,100 patients, conducted 319 successful surgeries, delivered 16 babies, and pulled 4 people from the rubble. And after the 2015 earthquake in Nepal, they joined the 260-member mission to Kathmandu, where they spent 2 weeks searching for and rescuing survivors in the rubble. Closer to home, 669 teams assisted in the rescue of a Jordanian school bus swept away in a flash flood. This was just 6 months after the field trip disaster on the Israeli side. These situations weigh heavily on 669 members. Despite the difficulties faced in their service, saving lives becomes second nature to many of the unit's veterans. 25% of combat operators go on to study medicine, a rate far higher than any other unit, some of them returning to the unit as reserve doctors. And in 2014, alumni founded the CAT Association that provides networking, mentoring, and therapy workshops for veterans. The return to civilian life can be difficult, so a support system of people who share their unique experiences is critical and sometimes a lifesaver. 669 has saved over 15,000 military and civilian lives in Israel and abroad. When we hear Special Forces, we usually think of Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, or the Green Berets, elite combat teams. But for the IDF, one of those elite units is dedicated to airborne evacuation, rescue, and saving lives.